I got asked to do a video about Magic the Gathering in Japanese, but I already did. But let's do another one. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 10 Magic the Gathering slang terms used in Japanese, which aren't really used in English. So Japanese does have comparative terms for a number of slang terms that aren't in English, such as bear, a 2/2 is kuma, which is great, right? It's a 1-to-1. But the communities are separate, and so they have developed their own vocabulary. And maybe some of these we should develop for English. So let's check them out. So in English, we use the term sack outlet for anything that, allows you to sacrifice things. In Japanese, there are a few versions of these, and they all relate to the altars, like Phyrexian altar, Ashnod's altar, etc., that were the original development of this. So aruta, a transliteration of altar, does work, but kugidai, which comes from the Japanese terms that is used for those two altars, is also there too. Now, this can again just be a one-for-one of sack outlet, but also in some cases it has the implication of something that allows you to sacrifice a creature for mana, so a more specific terminology in a way. There's also the version sakuridai, which is like a sacrificial, right? Sakuri from sacrifice. This means that, of course, sakuru can be used to mean to sacrifice as a verb. This is just a dai, like an altar, some kind of flat thing, a surface, which you can sakuru things. Then the phrases ita and marui are kind of the same. I messed up. This is actually read as bon, which uses the onyomi, which will make sense when we get to the etymology. Sorry about that. It's not ita, it's bon. And they mean that something is safe, like it's a safe bet. And itakado, for instance, is a card that is a safe bet to put in your deck. It's probably going to increase your win rate. There aren't a lot of risks involved. This is kind of an old pun that is associated more with gambling, etc., that comes from teppan, is in teppanyaki. Teppan was used to refer to something that's a sure bet. The general explanation being that a teppan is very hard, and the word hard in Japanese, katai, can mean that something is kind of surefire. Like katai shobai is a business that is sound. Marui is the same thing, right? If it's circular, if it's safe versus togatteru. If something is marui, it is a play that makes sense, as in this person here recommending this card because it's, a good one. It isn't likely to cost you any games. Irojiko is then a very, very interesting one that we don't really have because it's like a specific type of mana screw. Broadly speaking, tochijiko, or like land accidents, land trouble, is used for mana screw, mana flare, etc. But in irojiko is specifically when you have enough lands, you just don't have the right colors. So I guess you're color screwed. If that is a term that is used in Magic, I don't know it. Sorry, I have failed at the concept of this video, but that is what that is called in Japanese. Inkushimi, or then an ink blot, is a great one for a card that just has no use. It sees no play whatsoever, so it's basically no better than just a blot of ink on some paper. Basically a card that, in or out of context, has no impact on the game whatsoever. So it might as well have no text on it, just be a blot of ink. Erufu no Mura, or an elf village, is then used either to refer to an elf ball deck, or just a board state where there are a lot of elves on the table. Similar to Bolt the Bird, Erufu no Mura o Yaku, to burn down the elf village, or various conjugations of it, is used when you try to destroy the board state of an elf player. Okosu, or to wake up, is then used to mean untap, which is kind of fun. The official version is antappu, which is just, untap. But you can okosu things instead, which is cute. The verb kiru, or to cut, then has two uses. One is the Japanese version of to crack. So we crack a fetch, they kiru a fetch land. It also, though, refers to when you have a really, really important card in your hand and you decide to finally use it, like if you have a Force of Will or something, some kind of counterspell that you've been holding on to, and you just decide this is the point that I have to use this really, really valuable card, that is called kiru. Kea, or care, right, as in, which is used in Japanese in terms like self-care, is a very interesting one then with two meanings. One is to kind of predict what your opponent is doing and making sure that they can't counterplay you. Like, for instance, playing a land first because you think your opponent has a counterspell in hand that costs mana to respond to, you use the name of the card, o keasuru, so caring for the card, to reflect that kind of state. It also refers to paying taxes, so like paying the 1 for Ristic Study. You can say that you are going to kea that card, which means that you're going to pay attention to it. And if you can't afford it, then you kea dekinai. Now, while some English Magic the Gathering Japanese slang terms have been borrowed in English more or less as is or translated. For instance, toriku is used for a combat trick, and koware is used when a card is broken, which means broken. There are some that have just come out of Japanese as well. So, for instance, the jaiguro is from giant growth, right? And that refers to a combat trick, specifically an instant. Now, we have examples of this in English, of course, where the original version of a card that has an effect is now like the name of that effect. Shocklands refer to shock. We use drain because of drain life. But jaiguro is interesting, not only that it's one that seems to be Japanese made, it also doesn't relate to the Japanese name of that card. So it shows that they are paying some attention to kind of the English, or at least were back in the day. Unfortunately, though, apparently it's not being verbed, which is awful, and they should. Kono kado o jaiguro rimashita. Easy. Do it. Please. Sushi, as in, like the food, is used to refer to the Thassa's Oracle combo, or the card. because it's fish, right? But also potentially relating to the cephalid breakfast kind of thing. The idea that like milling your entire deck is eating. And then while we have to say come into play tapped, Japanese people have tappuin, which is something that things can do. So if a card comes into play tapped, that's the word for it. Very efficient. And then surizao, or a fishing rod, is hilariously used to refer to cards that pull a creature or pull anything out of your graveyard onto the battlefield. So a reanimation spell. So it's a rod. By extension, or by relation, I don't know which one came first, tsuru, or to fish, is a verb that is used to mean reanimate for basically the same reason. And there you go, I think that's 10. Just a little bonus, there's one other thing I'll talk about really quickly, which is one very, very interesting keyword that is used in Japanese, because most of the time, Japanese keywords are either transliterations of English, as in toramparu for trample, or they're just like Japanese words that kind of relate. Like keikai is the Japanese version of vigilance, and it means vigilant, right? There are times where they just like make up a word. Seshi is a word that is not a word, but it means like come into contact with, and death, so death touch, right? Makes sense. But hankon here is lifelink, and this one's very, very strange because it combines the kanji for kizuna, or a connection, and tamashi, or soul. And like connect soul doesn't really seem like lifelink, right? The reason for this word, which if you said to like a non-magic playing Japanese person, they'd assume you're talking about like a scar or something, actually relates way, way back to the history of the game. It's kind of like a relic of the game because lifelink wasn't originally coded, right? But one of the first cards that gave creatures what we now call lifelink was Spirit Link. And the Japanese translation for this was, flipping those around, Tamashi no Kizuna, or a link of spirits, right? So when it came time to give this ability a keyword, they flipped the kanji, switched them both to the onyomi, and then you had this thing that kind of makes no sense, but again, it doesn't matter if it makes sense because there's rules explaining it, and now it's used in the game, and there it is. But I have to admit, the first time I saw hankon written on a card, I was very, very confused. Anyway, that's it. I responded to this request. I'm done. I hope you like this. If it does well, I'm happy to make more, but that's it for now. I hope you found this video magical.